If you're young in 2026, you're hearing two opposite messages about housing. One side says, buy now or you'll be locked out forever. The other says, housing is a bubble. Renting is the only smart move. The truth is less dramatic and more useful. A house can still be a terrific decision for you in 2026, but only if the deal, the mortgage, and your plans line up for the long term. If you asked me in 2026, Warren, should I still buy a house? I wouldn't start with the market. I'd start with you, because a house is not just an investment. It's a 10, 20, 30-year commitment, and in a world of high prices and higher mortgage rates, that commitment can either make your life or quietly choke it. So let me give you the brutal truth. Young people aren't being told. People like to quote me on stocks. They don't quote me as much on houses, but I've been clear for years. I've said things like, if you find a house you like and you're going to stay in the locale for a while, buy it with a 30-year mortgage. I've called the 30-year fixed mortgage a terrific deal, a leveraged way of owning a very cheap asset when rates are right. I've also said that if I knew exactly where I was going to live for the next 5 to 10 years, I would buy a home and finance it with a 30-year mortgage. Why did I talk that way? Because a fixed rate mortgage, when priced sensibly, gives you something very rare in finance: certainty. The bank takes the interest rate risk. You get a payment you can plan around for 30 years. Over time, inflation tends to raise wages and rents while your nominal payment stays flat. In many periods, that's been a beautiful position to be in. I've even said that if I were a hands-on investor, I'd love to buy distressed homes with 30-year mortgages, fix them up, and rent them out. At the right prices, that might be one of the most attractive investments available: a leveraged inflation protected asset with rising rents paying down the debt. So no, I've never said real estate is bad. I've said a home you will truly live in for a long time, financed with a sensible 30-year fixed, can be one of the best decisions you ever make. A couple of fixer-upper rentals bought intelligently can be powerful if you have the skills and temperament to handle them. I even called my own modest Omaha house bought for around $31,500 in the 1950s the third best investment I ever made, but I've been honest about why. The memories, not the financial return. Purely as a financial asset, I've said I'd have made more renting and putting the difference into stocks. That's the context. Now let's talk about what's changed. The advice I gave about homes and 30-year mortgages came out of a world where home prices had been beaten down after the 2008 crisis. Mortgage rates were 3-4%. You could lock in a cheap payment and watch rents and incomes rise around you. 2026 is not that world. Today, yes, home values are still 30% plus higher than pre-pandemic levels. The average home is around $360,000, $370,000, and in many cities, far above that. Mortgage rates spent 2025 above 6%, and forecasts suggest they may hover around that level into 2026 rather than returning to 3%. First-time buyers are older than ever. The median age hit about 40 in 2024, reflecting how hard it's become to save a down payment and qualify. In fact, for the first time in years, more homeowners now have a 6% mortgage than a 3% one. That's good news if you're buying today compared with people locked at much lower rates refusing to sell. But it still means your monthly cost is much higher than it would have been a few years ago. So when you hear my old quote, it's a terrific deal, buy a single-family home with a 30-year mortgage, you have to remember, I said that when mortgage rates and prices were far more favorable. The math in 2026 is tighter, the margin for error is smaller, and the risk of stretching too far is higher. A 30-year fixed is still a great instrument. The question now is whether the price of the house and the size of the payment makes sense for you, given your income, your savings, and your life plans. Real estate didn't suddenly become bad. But the automatic assumption that buying is always better than renting is more dangerous in 2026 than at almost any time in the last decade. Here's the brutal truth I'd tell a 25 or 30-year-old today. Number one, buying too early at too high a price with too little margin can set you back a decade. A stretch payment at 6 to 7% on a house that was already expensive does not make you an owner. It can make you a stressed tenant of the bank. If you put everything into the down payment and closing costs with nothing left for repairs, job loss, or health surprises, you're one shock away from disaster. Number two, you don't win just by getting on the ladder. You win by owning a home that fits your life and lets you keep saving and investing. A house that stops you from ever investing in anything else is not an asset, it's an anchor. Number three, being a landlord in 2026 is not a passive side hustle, it's a business. When I talked about buying distressed homes and renting them out, I added a big caveat. If I were a hands-on investor, the management would be enormous. You have tenants to manage. Repairs and vacancies to handle legal and local rules to understand. In 2012, when prices were low and rates were 3-4%, the upside compensated for a lot of hassle. In 2026, with high prices, high rates, and tighter margins, you can easily end up working very hard for a return that doesn't beat a simple index fund, especially if you overpay. So the harsh truth is, yes, a house can still be one of the best things you ever do. But in 2026, it is easier than ever to do it in a way that quietly wrecks your finances instead of building them. So how should you decide? Don't ask, is real estate good? Ask, is this specific deal good for me at this price for the long term? Here's the checklist I'd use in your shoes. Question 1, am I truly going to stay at least 5-10 years? My old line still applies. If I were certain of where I would want to reside for the next 5 to 10 years, I would acquire a home and finance it with a 30-year mortgage. Why 15 years? Buying and selling both have friction costs, closing costs, agent commissions, moving costs. You need time for those to be spread over enough years that the numbers make sense. If you're not confident you'll stay in that city or that neighborhood at least 5 years, renting often gives you more flexibility and may even be cheaper after all costs. Question 2, is this a fixed rate mortgage I can comfortably afford even if things go wrong? A 30-year fixed still gives you something valuable, payment certainty, but I can make the payment if everything goes perfectly is not the standard you need. Room in your budget. If your income drops, you have a child, or expenses rise. The ability to keep saving for retirement and emergencies after paying the mortgage and property taxes. If you run the numbers and you're at the edge of your capacity with no cushion, that is not a Buffett style deal. There is no margin of safety. Question 3, after closing, do I still have a cash buffer? I like deals with margin of safety. In a house, that margin is a few months of expenses in cash. Enough set aside for repairs, and houses always need repairs. Some breathing room if property taxes or insurance go up. If your home purchase empties every account you have, you're not an owner. You're a hostage. Question 4, if this is a rental or fixer-upper, do I really know what I'm doing? Buying distressed homes and renting them out can still work in 2026. The fundamental logic remains, use a long fixed rate mortgage to lock in your biggest cost. Collect rents that rise over time with inflation. Let tenants gradually pay off the debt. But now, mortgage rates are higher. Purchase prices are higher. Maintenance and labor costs are higher. So the margin for error, the gap between your rent after costs and your all-in expenses, is much thinner. If you're handy, disciplined, and treat it like a business, it can still be attractive. If you think it's a set it and forget it ticket to passive income, you're likely to be disappointed. Question 5, if I rented for 3-5 more years and invested the difference, what would that look like? This is the question almost nobody asks. Take your realistic cost to own in 2026, mortgage payment at actual rates, property taxes, insurance, HOA, if any, a reserve for repairs. Compare that to your realistic cost to rent a decent place. If owning is only slightly more and you plan to stay 10 years, you're probably fine if you have a buffer. If owning is thousands more per year and you're barely saving now, you may be better off renting something modest, saving aggressively, building your skills and income, buying later with a larger down payment and better terms. There is no shame in renting while you build a stronger balance sheet and a clearer picture of your life. The house will still be there. So, should you still buy a house in 2026? Here's my brutal, simple answer. Yes, if you'll stay put for 10 years. You're taking a 30-year fixed you can comfortably afford under less than perfect conditions. You keep a cash buffer for repairs and bad luck. You're not sacrificing all long-term investing just to make the payment. No, or at least not yet if. You're doing it because you're scared of missing out. You're stretching to the absolute limit of what the bank will lend you. You have no money left after closing. You're treating landlording as a hobby instead of a business. Don't let anyone tell you real estate is always good or real estate is always bad. In 2026, the right sentence is a specific house at a specific price with a specific mortgage for a specific life plan can be wonderful or terrible. Ask that question honestly, and you'll know your answer.